Dinosaur Boy Chapter 12. It must have been the mole. I couldn't sit there 1 second longer. I just couldn't. But I also didn't want to run into the crowd of students who had just vacated the cafeteria in terror. I had a feeling I wouldn't blend in. So I went out the back way, the way that only teachers and cafeteria staff are allowed to go. I left Sylvia and Elliot behind, walked through the deserted kitchen, and just kept opening doors until I found one that led outside. It opened up right next to the soccer field, which was blissfully empty of people. I ran, holding my tail off the ground with one hand until I was in the very center of the field. Then I stopped and stood still. I had no idea what I was doing there. I knew it wouldn't be long before someone would find me, probably animal control or the police. But for right now, this moment, I was in a big, empty, open space, alone, with no one staring at me. It felt nice. The weather was nice, too. It was unseasonably warm for fall in Portland, and the sun was actually coming out from behind the clouds for once. I could feel its warm rays hitting my plates. I stretched my neck out and angled my back so that the sun would be able to reach as many of them as possible. I shivered in the warmth. It was the good kind of shiver, like stepping out into the sun after you've spent too long in air conditioning. There was a little bit of breeze, too. I could feel it on my face. I was never really one to notice things like breezes, but this one caught my attention. I closed my eyes and felt the light wind pick up the very ends of my hair. I tried to use that to figure out which direction it was coming from. I didn't really know why I was doing that. It didn't make much sense to me until, slowly, as though I was obeying some long-forgotten instinct, I turned into the wind. I felt an icy whoosh as the breeze traveled over the top of my head and down my 2 rows of plates, spilling down my back like a waterfall of wind. I'd always thought of my plates, the way they were described in scientific journals, as bony protrusions. But they weren't anything but that right now. They were alive, and as sensitive as fingertips as they drank in the sunshine and basked in the gentle touch of the wind. Doesn't that sound lovely? I kind of wanted to squirm, the way Fanny did when I rubbed her belly in just the right spot. But I was afraid to move, afraid to lose the sensation. It was peaceful. For the very first time, my dinosaur parts didn't feel like bulky, awkward growths. In fact, they didn't even feel like parts anymore. They just felt like me. It occurred to me that everybody, including me, had been talking about how I had turned part dinosaur over the summer. But that wasn't exactly true. Dinosaur had been in my DNA all along. I had always been part dinosaur. It had just taken me 11 years to grow the plates to prove it. I could hear people in the distance shouting at me and at others to tell them they'd found me. They would be upon me soon, and even if they somehow missed me standing out in the open, the dark clouds on the horizon would eventually roll in and take away the sunshine. But until then, I would just stand there with my eyes closed. I didn't want this feeling to end. I just wanted to be happy, and I would be for as long as they would let me. Happy to not hate that I was part dinosaur, for at least a minute or 2 more. "I'm really sorry, Principal Mathis," I said, staring down at my hands. "I don't know what happened." When I finally looked up, Principal Mathis was blinking at me from across her desk. Her hair looked bigger than usual today, which made her face look smaller, which in turn made her look extremely mantis-like. "What happened is that you lost your temper," she said. "What did Alan say to you?" "Nothing," I mumbled, trying not to shiver. Seriously, why did the administration wing always have to be like 20 degrees colder than the rest of the school? "At the beginning of this year, I told you to come straight to me if anyone started picking on you. I know Alan has been giving you a hard time, but I don't have anything to prove it. Why haven't you been to see me about him?" I shrugged. "Sawyer," she said, her voice taking a turn for the sharp, "why won't you admit that Alan is bullying you? I can't help you if you don't tell me what happened." "I don't—" I swallowed, somewhat painfully. My throat has been aching ever since the roar. "I don't want you to help me anymore." "What?" Principal Mathis asked, sounding confused. "Enough kids are already gone," I said so quietly I could barely hear myself. I glanced up at her, worried that I had gone too far. Principal Mathis wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the lone piece of artwork on her office wall, a framed quote that read, "He who opens a school door closes a prison. Victor Hugo." "Not quite enough," she mumbled. Then she shook her head and turned back to me again. "I want you to feel safe at this school, Sawyer." "I do," I said quickly, "but what about them?" "Them?" She blinked at me again. "The kids who are gone," I persisted. I was pushing it. I knew that, but I had to find out. Principal Mathis's face had no expression on it whatsoever. What about them? She asked. Are they safe? I asked. Of course they're safe. Principal Mathis looked aghast. What do you think had happened to them, Sawyer? I shrugged. I don't know. We just think. We? She demanded. I corrected myself. There was no point in dragging Sylvie and Ellie into this. I just wonder where they went, that's all. Principal Mathis took a deep breath. After a moment or two more of staring at me, she opened her desk drawer and took out a brochure. She made as if to hand it to me, then hesitated. Can you keep a secret, Sawyer? Okay, I agreed. She put the brochure in my hand. If you guys can see this, that's what the brochure looks like. It says Camp Remorse, a bully rehabilitation center just outside of beautiful Morrison, Colorado, because bullies are kids too. I can see you are very concerned about your classmates, Sawyer, Principal Mathis said, so I'll let you in on the secret. Because of the zero tolerance policy, all of the students who have bullied you since school began have been automatically expelled, but they also have been offered the opportunity to enroll in a 6-week intensive program at Camp Remorse. Those who successfully complete the program will be welcomed back to school. Oh, I said. Was that it? Parker and the others weren't dead? They were just in Colorado? Suddenly everything Elliot and Sylvia and I had speculated over the past few days seemed absurd. What had we been thinking? Of course 10 kids hadn't just up and disappeared. Why is it a secret? I asked Principal Mathis as I skimmed through several of the program offerings inside the brochure, like hot yoga for hot heads and the art of patience, not put-downs. She sat back in her chair and shrugged. Several of the parents are concerned about this incident damaging their children's future academic career. I have assured them that so long as their child graduates from the program, their expulsion will be reversed and removed from their permanent record. Assuming there are no future incidents, no one will ever have to know that their child attended Camp Remorse. Oh, I said again. That makes sense. Principal Mathis caught my eye over the edge of the program. They're not getting off without punishment, Sawyer, she said. Behind her glasses, her eyes were full of sincerity. This is a tough program. It will make them think about what they did to you and how wrong it was, but it will also give them a chance to work through their problems and rejoin the school as better adjusted, more tolerant kids. I promise not a single student will be allowed back into the school until they have demonstrated to my satisfaction that they have been fully rid of their need to bully. I nodded vigorously, rather embarrassed by Principal Mathis's intense need to defend me. But I was also kind of touched. I was pretty sure that our previous principal hadn't even known my name. I'll try not to roar again, I told her. I didn't mean to. I think it might just be something that happens when I get angry, or maybe when I eat spicy food. I'm not really sure, but I promise I won't bite anyone like that kid in New Jersey. I never thought you would bite anyone, Sawyer, Principal Mathis said. She stood, indicating that I should leave. But do try to keep the roaring under control. 2 fifth graders who heard it had nervous breakdowns and had to be sent home for the day. Their parents were not pleased. Sorry, I muttered again as I reached for the doorknob. Sawyer? Yeah? I turned back around. Principal Mathis held out her hand. The brochure? Oh, right. I handed her the brochure and left her office. Miss Helen looked up as I did, then pressed a button on her fan and made it oscillate back and forth even faster than before. I had to break my promise to Principal Mathis almost immediately, as Sylvie and Elliot were both waiting for me right outside the administration building. I felt sort of guilty about it, but I couldn't let the two of them go on thinking our classmates were dead or in trouble when I knew differently. They didn't react how I'd imagined. Camp what? Elliot scoffed. That sounds made up, Sylvie seconded. I saw a brochure. I insisted there were classes and a logo, and it's just outside of Colorado, and totally made up, Sylvie concluded with a sniff. Well, Elliot hedged, I guess it does sort of explain why Parker's mom said she missed him. Sylvie shook her head. You guys are so gullible. Camp Remorse? That's just ridiculous. Principal Mathis is a total liar. No, she's not, I fired back. She's trying to help me. You don't know anything, Sylvie. Oh, I know stuff, Sylvie sniffed, putting her hands on her hips and glaring at me from under her hoodie. And even if I didn't, I know better than to be a trusting nitwit who just... Shh! Elliot broke in frantically. It's her. Sylvie's jaw snapped shut as Principal Mathis came striding through the administration building doors. Even in her enormous heels, which made a sharp click, click, click on the ground as she passed, the principal was still only a bit taller than Sylvie and me, which meant that she was about a foot shorter than Elliot. Hello, Principal Mathis, Elliot said, smiling and giving her a goofy wave. Hello there, Principal Mathis said, smiling up at him as she breezed by. She seemed to be in a hurry. She barely nodded at Sylvie and me as she clicked down toward the parking lot and took a sharp left. Sylvie watched with narrowed eyes as Principal Mathis disappeared around the side of the science wing. I'm following her, she declared, then looked warningly at Elliot and me. You coming? I hesitated. So did Elliot. What if we don't? Elliot inquired. Sylvie shrugged. Then don't blame me if you both end up at Camp Remorse.